Hi, everybody. It's Adele Frizzell, and I'm here today with,
Tiffany Buck.
and we have an exciting topic today. I was actually up at 4 a.m. this morning preparing this slideshow for y'all. I hope you appreciate all the hours that have gone into this because I was editing up until like 20 minutes ago. So this is fresh content for you, and I think this is really going to appeal to a lot of our clients. Unfortunately, when we sent out the messaging about this Facebook Live today, what we talked about was nutritional considerations for adults, well, for the elderly, and maximizing quality of life. We should not have said for the elderly. We should have said for over 50. And really, some of this, what we're going to talk about today, applies to people in their 40s. So this is really important information. I hope that you will tell your friends and family about this and that they will watch this. So what are we talking about today? Welcome. We're talking about nutritional considerations for adults over 50, maximizing quality of life. We're talking about common age-related health problems in this series. And so we have part 1, part 2, and part 3. Part 1 today, we're talking about sarcopenia, how to prevent or slow down age-related muscle loss. And this is such an important topic. And I think you're going to realize just how important it is at the end of our time together. And also, I want to empower you, as always, with information that you can apply, practical tips that you can take home and start implementing even today. Okay, so without much further ado, I think we'll get started on the slideshow. How's that sound, Tiffany?
Good.
Tiffany's going to be monitoring. Pardon me?
Oh, I was saying, I think that's a great plan.
Okay, so Tiffany's going to be monitoring the comments. If you have any questions, please feel free to ask. There will be a slight delay, but we will get to your questions. Maybe towards the end. What do you think?
Yeah, I think that's good. I think
I might end up answering your question in a few minutes anyway. So if you could just hang in there, we'd appreciate it. All right, so I'm just going to set this up. We're on Zoom and we're broadcasting this, and I need to switch to share my screen. Okay, so
while you're getting that set up, we've got a couple people watching. Thanks for joining, guys. We appreciate you.
Yeah, we really appreciate some comments though as we go, because the reason is whenever we do these Facebook Lives, Facebook does not show them to people in our group. We have over 2,300 women in this Facebook group. Unfortunately, only about 10% of people see this important information. The more people comment and like, the more the Facebook algorithms go, oh, this post was important to people in this group, so I'm going to actually make it more visible and show it to other members of the group. So we would really appreciate some comments, some likes, things like that as we go. It would be really helpful. All right. So welcome to today's topic, nutritional considerations for adults over 50, maximizing quality of life. We're talking about common age-related health problems in aging adults in this video series, and we're doing 3 videos. One on sarcopenia, which is age-related muscle loss. That's today's topic. And then in March, we're doing osteoporosis, osteopenia, so bone health. And then in our third topic, we're going to cover age-related cognitive decline. And these are common diseases of aging. Fortunately, we can use nutritional interventions to help reduce the risk of muscle loss, reduce the risk of osteoporosis, and neurodegenerative diseases like Alzheimer's and Parkinson's. There are some things that we can do. And as always, we take an evidence-based approach to this. So happy to provide you with further reading, research papers, etc., if you want to do more digging. So what can we do to reverse or slow down the decline of these things? We can implement some lifestyle changes and new nutrition into our diet. And this is really critical information, not only for us as adults over 40, but we can also help our loved ones quite a bit. So, sarcopenia is the topic today. And what is it? It is the decline of skeletal muscle with age. It is one of the most important causes of functional decline and loss of independence in older adults. It actually can affect people in their 30s, believe it or not. It's a type of muscle loss or muscle atrophy, which means wasting, that occurs with aging or immobility. And so if you are quite sedentary in your 30s, you can start to experience sarcopenia in that decade. This is a really personal topic for me. It's one very close to my heart. And I think of my grandma. I think about aging well. And I think about my risks and my own life and her life. And on the left is a picture of us from January 2016. So that was about 7 years ago. And she was 88 in this photo. She lives alone still, which is wonderful. She's lives independently. On the right is a picture of us from just this Christmas, December 2022, and she's 94 years old in that photo. And it sort of hurt me to see her this Christmas because I definitely saw a decline in her ability to move and her memory starting to go and stuff. Whereas before, it seemed like the woman never aged. She's gone through a lot of health changes in 6 years, and I think I can trace back the decline because it was not muscular, actually. It had to do with her bone health. So she got out of bed one day. She put her both feet on the floor, and she heard something snap as soon as she put her weight on her feet, and her shin bone snapped because her bone density she had so much bone loss. And after it snapped, it meant that she had to give up bowling, which was her favorite thing. She was a 10-pin bowler for like 4 or 5 decades. And she used to bowl every week with her sons. And now she could no longer bowl. And she used to do morning exercises every day. I think it really kept her fit and kept her muscles really good. She would walk the hallway of her apartment building, go down the stairs, walk across the next level, go up the stairs, and do this every day. And she had a bike where you push on the handlebars at the same time to help her upper body strength. She kept her flexibility up. She could touch both palms to the floor, bending over. I mean, there's people in their 20s can't do that, right? Hands flat on the floor. And she did her exercises every morning religiously for decades. She never missed a day, and she was really proud of that. But after she broke her shin, that's when the decline started, and she didn't walk as much. She stopped bowling. She lost some strength. She lost some mobility. And then she got COVID a couple of years ago. She's had some memory problems. And she's just not the same. And I suppose, she's 95 next month. This is inevitable. And she had a really good quality of life. Even now, she can still be independent with her family bringing her meals. But, I think why she was able to stay so physically independent for so long was because she had an active life, because she bowled and exercised every day. She kept up her muscle mass really well. Unfortunately, her nutrition was never that great. It could have been better. I know for a fact she had a low protein diet and not many vegetables. And some of this might have helped her bone health along with some supplementation. So we're going to talk about that. But I mean, she's just a wonderful woman, and she's been able to stay healthy and have real quality years up until her 90s, which is awesome. And I think we all want that. You were going to say something, Tiffany?
Yeah, I was going to say, so some people might be saying, okay, well, she's in her 90s. Yeah, this is expected. So why are we talking about this now? And why are we addressing this for people who are in their 50s? And we even mentioned people in their 30s. So why would we start talking about this now for something that's, 40, 50 years away for some people?
Yeah, because because you don't want to wait until it's too late. You can slow down muscle loss and bone loss over the decades through some interventions. And I think that she was able to stay so able-bodied for so long, like even use a toilet normally, which my husband's mother can't do. She can't get off of a chair, and she was very sedentary and inactive most of her life. And I think it's because she was always active versus, other women who are inactive. And so starting now, what we do now has a big impact on how our quality of life later on. Yeah. So when we're talking about aging adults, what is the age group we're usually talking about? Well, most of the research on sarcopenia is done on adults over 65. Some of the research is done on adults over 50. I'm 53, and I just found out that I'm in a category called pre-elderly now, which, according to some research, I'm in the pre-elderly category, which just doesn't fit well with me. I think of elderly as over 80 personally, but in the research, elderly is considered as young as 65. But the good news is sarcopenia can be slowed down at any age. Even people in their 80s you can have some interventions that will really help with their quality of life. And this is important because we have an aging population. It is getting older, and by 2030, 1 in 6 people in the world will be over 60 years or over. That's a lot. And that's a lot. And our life time is being extended. And so we could be looking at another 30 or 40 years. We want to make sure that those years are good. Mm-hmm. So when you think of sarcopenia, think of it as a general loss of muscle mass. And this loss of muscle mass leads to a loss of muscle strength and performance. And so it really starts with holding on to as much muscle mass as possible. And this is why we want to start lifting and working out and being active and eating right now. And so it's a progressive disease, basically, with this loss of muscle mass. What we have is pre-sarcopenia. So the early stages is simply a loss of muscle mass. And then in the latter stages with sarcopenia, we also have the loss of muscle strength and a loss of performance. And it's important because it's associated with really adverse outcomes like physical disability, poor quality of life, and even death. So I wanted to show you a cross-section of a thigh. And these are 3 different men. And as I mentioned, muscle loss can begin in our 30s if we're sedentary. Genetics, nutrition, lifestyle, they play a big role in this. Peak muscle mass is likely between 20 and 30 years old. And then it starts to decline if you do not train. Now, if you lift weights, you actually can gain muscle well into your 30s and 40s. There are people in the best shape of their lives in their later years. But some muscle loss is inevitable over time. If you look at this graphic, you'll see a muscle cross-section of a thigh, okay? If you look at the left one, it's a male who is 24 years old. He weighs 76 kilos. I'm not sure what that is in pounds. Could you translate, Tiffany?
Yes.
His fat mass is 22 pounds of fat mass. And fat mass, how much is it?
His weight in pounds is 167 pounds.
Okay. So his fat-free mass is 57 kilos. Can you translate that? Fat-free mass is all of your body parts that don't contain fat. So it includes your inner organs, your bones, your tendons, your ligaments, your muscles, your blood, your connective tissue, your nerves. But even some of these organs and tissues can become fatty with some diseases such as diabetes or obesity or high cholesterol. So his fat-free mass, he's fairly lean, he's only got 22 pounds of fat tissue, and his fat-free mass is how many pounds?
125 pounds of fat-free mass.
Okay, so he weighs 160 some pounds, and he's got
165.
165, and 120 some of that is actually fat-free.
Yep.
So
So muscle mass, bone mass, blood tissue, things like that.
yeah. And you can see like this red part or this dark part is his muscle. And the white part is the fat tissue. In the middle, we have a male who's 66 years old. Big change, right? A lot more fat tissue. His body mass, he's heavier. He's 81 kilos. So he weighs about 12 pounds more.
Mhm.
His fat mass is 57 kilos. So the 24-year-old was 10 kilos, 22 pounds of fat mass. This gentleman, what's his fat mass at 57 kilos?
Give me 1 second.
It's about 130,
125.
125 pounds of fat tissue, which is substantial. His
So he
lean
has
muscle.
his fat mass is the same amount as the fat-free mass in the first person.
Wow. So even though they weigh almost the same, his fat tissue is equal to the lean muscle tissue or the fat-free mass of the younger individual. Yeah.
Mhm.
And you can see like his thigh has a lot more fat tissue in it. I've seen cross sections where basically you got even 10% of this muscle. It's quite gruesome. Now his fat-free mass is 13 kilos, which is how many pounds? This is his muscle, his bones, his tendons, his ligaments. So what we might see over time is a drop in bone density too, which can affect that. What is it?
28.6 pounds.
That's it. Wow. And the other guy was over 100 pounds of fat-free mass.
125.
Now, you might be thinking to yourself, like a lot of people do, well, he's old. But 66 years old is not that old, in my opinion. As I get older, I think it's not that old. His average daily steps were only 3,100 steps a day. Okay, he did 22 minutes of activity a day on average.
Mhm.
And when we look at the male on the right side, he weighs only 4 pounds less. He's also 66 years old. His fat mass, though, is 23 kilos less, almost 50 pounds less fat tissue. And his fat-free mass is 36 kilos, which is how many pounds? Compared to 13 kilos in the other. So he's got almost 3 times as much fat-free mass.
Yep, 79 pounds of fat-free mass.
Yeah. So his average daily steps, though, this is the difference. 12,445 steps a day. He actually was active for 130 minutes a day, lightly active, but 130 minutes. And sometimes that's all it takes is just more movement to preserve your muscle mass.
Mhm. We've actually seen this with our own clients as well. We've had clients come to us, and because we follow a higher protein protocol, they're getting more protein than they've ever had in their entire life. And then we're also asking our clients to walk 30 minutes a day as a minimum. That's what we want to see you do. And we've actually seen multiple clients gain muscle tissue while losing fat mass, just by increasing how many steps they're taking in a day.
Yeah. Totally. So both of these 66-year-old males weighed almost the same, but huge differences in body composition. And this is why we're always telling people, like, don't just be focused on the number on the scale. Be focused about like what your body is composed of, how much fat mass, how much muscle you have. You know, the man who is much more active by walking more every day, he has 50 more pounds of fat-free mass, and that's just from walking. Now, on average, muscle mass declines approximately 1% a year from its peak. Remember, your peak is between 20 and 30 years old. But some research indicates it declines by only 0.5%. Other research says it can decline by a whopping 2% loss per year. But this is only in people who do not exercise regularly. Okay, so if you don't use it, you will lose it. It is inevitable. And unfortunately, though, this is what some people call age, and it's mostly lifestyle. You know, when you're looking at high numbers, this is largely driven by lifestyle. So go ahead.
I was going to say, it's kind of similar to saying, well, I'm a mom, or well, I'm this, or well, I'm that, I'm older, so it's expected. It's kind of a self-lie that we can tell ourselves, because, you know, for the longest time when I was overweight, I'm a mom, I'm just going to be overweight. It's genetics. My entire family is overweight. And it's the same thing with aging. Just because the science says that it may happen, you can choose to control that narrative to a certain extent.
Yeah, 100%. Stories are comforting and they let us off the hook, right? But I want to show you like the reality here. So you can then take this information and decide what you want to do with it. You're not at the mercy of just getting old. So declining muscle mass, one of the things to mention in this graph is like this shows the muscle percentage, and the more, like you can see when you're younger, you have higher amounts of muscle tissue, and then it drops as you age. And this is getting to 100 years of age. But there are outliers. When you look at this graph, there are people here who have as much muscle mass almost as somebody who is 20 years old, if you look at the dots. And so it doesn't mean that you have to, you know, lose your muscle mass. If you look at this graph, there's some people holding on to it as well as a 20-year-old. Which is very comforting, actually. I think that's sort of what I wanted to explore there. Okay. So declining strength. So it seems like strength does decline with age, independent of muscle mass, even though they are really highly linked. So in addition to muscle atrophy, we do lose strength as we age. And here is an illustration of this from Delmonico et al. In 2009 research. On the left graph, you can see that people that lost muscle mass with aging also got much weaker. On the right side, the subjects that gained muscle mass, some of them still lost strength. So several research teams estimate that, again, we lose about even more, 2 to 4% of our strength per year as we get older. Now, this may not apply to you if you're doing strength training. I am 53 years old. I am bench pressing more weight than I was in my 40s. I remember starting off and being so proud when I could bench 135 pounds. And now I can bench 185 pounds, 190 pounds, 193 pounds. So it is possible to increase your strength through strength training. So this is not inevitable, okay? There's a combination of factors that affect us when we're talking about sarcopenia. You know, there's muscle disuse, so basically lifestyle atrophy, living a sedentary lifestyle. But there's other things at work like neuron atrophy. Your central nervous system is not efficient. Your hormones go down, testosterone goes down, estrogen goes down, and believe it or not, estrogen in women is very protective of muscle loss. So after the age of, like when women go through menopause, there is a huge decline in muscle strength, and there's more muscle atrophy as a result of hormonal changes.
So
go ahead.
Real quick, there's a comment here that I think that I should share because it relates directly to what we're talking about. Anju, I'm sorry if I said that name incorrectly, said, my mother-in-law always said to not have her stop doing stuff because once I sit down, I won't get up. She meant that once she starts being sedentary, stops cooking, etc., she won't be able to. Older folk were so wise without any science and research to prove it. She walks with a walker now at 92, but she is still active. Her mom at 88 is very frail, but walks in the house every meal and still cooks and takes care of herself with no help. So that's awesome. And I love that mindset that you kind of grew up with as well.
Yeah. That's great. And, you know, maintaining movement is important because, as you noted, she still cooks meals. And one thing I've seen in my own mother-in-law and my grandma is they don't cook anymore. And when they don't cook, then they don't eat properly. They don't eat nutritiously. They eat convenient foods. And then everything just starts to tank. So it's wonderful that she's maintained that independence and is still active. So, you know, there are a lot of factors that contribute to a loss of muscle. And, you know, some of this is chronic inflammation, but some of this is genetics. But look, a lot of this is lifestyle choices. Oops. All right. So in a nutshell, some of this is aging and the genetics, which you can't control. But there are several things within our control, such as the food we eat, the supplements we take, and whether we stay active and strength train. Let me give you an example. I think these images really bring it home. Here on the left, you have Ernestine Shepherd. She is the world's oldest bodybuilder. She's from the United States. And on the right, we see a picture we've all seen before, right? This is most people in their 80s needing some help to walk, using a cane, using a walker, using somebody to lean on. It is never too late to age well. No matter what your age is, you can improve your quality of life and you can reduce further deterioration through nutrition and exercise. Ernestine Shepherd, she didn't even start living an active lifestyle until she turned 56. Her sister had died of an aneurysm, and that motivated her to take better care of herself. And so alongside eating well and lifting weight, she also runs 80 miles every week. It's incredible. She's also a personal trainer. Prevention is really key. And you do not have to begin when you're deemed a senior, right? And culturally, women from our mother's generation, they were not really encouraged to play sports. It was even sneered at. And thankfully, that is changing. I don't even think the younger generation knows what a taboo it was for women to play sports and exercise. I mean, women were banned from running the Boston Marathon and participating in sports for so long, and I'm so glad that's changed.
I can't imagine a life where I would be restricted based on my gender to be able to perform an activity.
Yeah. So why is sarcopenia an issue? I hope it's kind of become clearer now, right? And one is to reduce the risk of falling. Individuals who have sarcopenia are over 3 times more likely to fall during a follow-up period of 2 years relative to people who don't have sarcopenia. And there's obviously negative consequences from falling. You get the injuries and the fractures, and my own grandma who didn't fall, my mother-in-law has broken her hip, and we saw a decline in her quality of life after that. But my grandmother who just broke her tibia standing, it does affect a person's independence of movement. They become more fearful of falling. And obviously, it means that you're probably not going to exercise as much. Mm-hmm. Falls are associated with a greater functional decline, physical activity restriction, and social withdrawal, anxiety, and depression, because your freedom is curtailed. You can't get out and do things you used to do. And I saw that with my grandma. She could no longer bowl. Those who've experienced a previous fall are 2.8 times more likely to fall again. So what are the mechanisms behind sarcopenia? A big reason for muscle loss is due to factors like something called anabolic resistance. This is where your skeletal muscle is not as sensitive to anabolic stimuli. So what do we mean by anabolic? It means sort of the building up of tissues. And in terms of nutrition, it means when we're talking about anabolic resistance, we can't utilize the amino acids and nutrients we eat from protein to build up the muscle tissue as well as somebody in their 20s. So older adults actually need to eat more like bodybuilders. This is to ensure that they can keep maintaining their muscle or even growing muscle. And what is, so I won't go too deep into the weeds with muscle protein synthesis and things like that. But there are contributing factors to this anabolic resistance: living a sedentary lifestyle, having inflammation. Low levels of inflammation do increase with age, but this is not necessarily age related. It can be related to how much body fat you have as well. Mm-hmm. Body fat is highly inflammatory. Mm-hmm. Micronutrient deficiencies can contribute to muscle wasting and a low protein intake, this is the biggie, it really does lend itself to more atrophy. Do you have anything you want to add about inflammation or anything like that, Tiffany?
Yeah, I just think that it's really important to really understand how your body fat levels can affect the inflammation. It's actually been proven that by reducing your body fat, you're actually better able to process like insulin and things like that inside of your body. And that's going to help reduce natural inflammation levels. And the less inflammation that we have, the less, everyone knows, like if you get a bum knee and it's really sore, it's uncomfortable. So the less inflammation that we have on our body, the more comfortable we're going to be able to be, and the more likely we are going to be able to live a more active lifestyle as well.
Yeah. And having, being insulin sensitive is a really good thing for muscle building, because that's what shuttles amino acids and nutrients into your muscles and helps you to build up muscle. So if you have insulin resistance, it is harder to build muscle. So keeping a good body composition and a good weight and a lower body fat percentage is important. And when I say weight, like take that with a grain of salt, because as we saw in that one individual's cross section of his thigh, his weight was okay. It was virtually the same as the healthier male, but he had a much higher body fat percentage. So it's the composition of that weight that really matters.
Yeah. If you're gonna choose one thing to track, body weight or body fat percentage, track the body fat percentage. Your body weight, it's cool to know how much you weigh, but at the end of the day, if your weight is mostly muscle mass, you're golden, no matter what your BMI says.
Yeah, exactly. So nutritional interventions, what you're all here for. What can you eat? What can you take to help your muscles, to help preserve your muscles? Okay, first of all, you want to look at having enough protein at each meal. This is where nutritional advice is a little bit different for people over 50 than it is for the general population. As an example, actually, we're going to put that aside and I'll go into it in a moment. But you want to make sure you're eating enough protein. Now, the recommended daily intake advice, the guidelines, are too low. And they really need to revise them, and I suspect that they will. And when I see too low, they are probably at least half as much protein as people should be taking. Mm-hmm. And this is based on numerous studies. And I'm happy to share some of those studies with you if you want to read them for yourself. One of the reasons why older people need to eat more like bodybuilders than somebody even in their 20s is because aging muscle is much less sensitive to nutrient uptake. So being able, when you eat that food, when you eat the protein, utilizing that amino acid as like little building blocks to build muscle tissue, which simply cannot absorb and utilize that protein as well as a younger person. We need higher doses. And one of the most important things we need is leucine. Leucine is a very important amino acid for muscle building. Mm-hmm. So when we're talking about protein, quality of protein really matters. You want to make sure you're getting all your amino acids in a day. And there are 20 amino acids, and 9 of them are considered to be essential amino acids because they cannot be manufactured in the body. They need to be consumed from outside sources. So this is where like vegetarians may struggle a little bit more with getting all their amino acids. It's totally possible, but you really need to be careful. And you're just more at risk of bone loss, muscle loss, etc. So you can supplement your amino acids, and one of the most important ones is leucine, and we're going to talk about that specifically. You need higher doses if you're an older adult. So this was an interesting study that was done. They basically figured out how much protein in this research group the subjects needed. They took these older women, they divided them into 2 groups. So let's say that they determined these women, we'll pretend they were all the same. They needed 120 grams of protein a day. And when I say grams, I'm not talking about weighted grams. I'm talking about macrograms, which is something we teach our clients about. To get 128 grams of protein in a day, we're talking several hundred grams of weighted food. Okay, so you could have, for example, 100 grams of egg whites, but that might only be equal to, I don't know, do you know how many grams of protein that would be in macros?
Well, I can pull that up. 100 grams of egg whites is not a lot of protein.
No, it might be 9 to 10 grams of protein, is my guess. But so we're talking about macrograms always here. Okay, so what they did was group A, they said, okay, 120 grams, we're going to divide it evenly over 4 meals. So 30, well, for example, 30 grams per meal. For most nutrition coaches, we always say, and I've said this, make sure you hit your total. That matters the most. And it really does matter. But in older populations, what really matters too is the quality of that protein, especially leucine. You want to have that protein have high amounts of leucine. So how much was it in macrograms?
11 grams of protein, 10.9.
I was close. Yeah.
Yeah.
Not very much. You'd have to eat a lot of egg whites to get 120 grams of protein. So anyway, the second group, what they did was they decided to just give them one large bolus of protein in one meal. Okay, so 79% of that daily dose, that daily total, was in one meal. So in 120 grams, that'd be about, I don't know what that is, 90 grams about in one meal. That's a lot of protein to eat, macrograms. And what they found was there were higher rates of muscle protein synthesis and improved muscle retention in the women who just had they ate 4 meals, but one of those meals had 80% of their protein requirements for the day. Why is this? Because they reached an important threshold for leucine, that really important muscle building amino acid. So this just goes to show that while hitting your protein goal for the day is important, hitting your leucine threshold is essential. Does that make sense? Any questions about that?
None in the chats that I see, but I think that there's some questions that could possibly arise from that. And I did the math on it, and it was about 108 grams of protein in that one meal based on your example. Wow. So for some people that may be a ton of food. So they may be asking, well, what are some other ways that I can ensure that I get an appropriate dosage for myself?
Yeah, for me, I would not want to personally eat 108 macrograms of protein in a meal. I would find that very uncomfortable to digest, even in liquid form. So my recommendation, if it's the leucine that's really hitting, that is so important, is I would spread my meals over 4 meals in a day, getting 30 to 50 grams of protein per meal, roughly. And I would make sure I hit my leucine by supplementing with the leucine protein powder. And that way I'm hitting my threshold. So I'd eat a normal meal and I'd drink a little bit of the leucine powder.
Yeah.
So leucine is really, really vital in older adults. It's also important for vegetarians to pay attention to. So where are some foods you can get leucine from? Lots of different foods. Even some vegetarians can get it from chickpeas, brown rice, soybeans, but we can get it from salmon, beef, things like that. Typically, you think about animal meat, you're going to get leucine in it.
Cottage cheese has it too.
Yeah. Another important supplement is fish oils, and the research is still continuing to emerge on this. But let's just say you need a lot of fish oil. So you should be supplementing, especially if you don't eat fatty fish like salmon every week. They found that 2 grams a day of fish oil supplementation for 90 days helped increase muscle strength and functional capacity in older women. 3.4 grams of EPA DHA for 6 months increased muscle mass and strength, and it slowed the normal decline in muscle mass and function. And 3 grams per day of fish oil supplementation for 18 weeks improved muscle function and quality in older women. Fish oils can really help with inflammation and make you more sensitive and anabolic. Creatine is another important supplement. There's a ton of research on creatine. It is the most studied supplement on the market. It's very, very safe, and it's showing real promise also for cognitive function. But when you combine creatine with resistance training, that's what the RT is in this, to increase your lean mass, it's like a beautiful partnership. When you just resistance train, you're going to make some gains. But when you do creatine with resistance training, it's going to really, really help. And so there was a meta-analysis done, which is, looking at a lot of research into this area and then trying to find what the takeaways were from all the research. That's what a meta-analysis is. And they found that it enhanced muscle mass gain, it enhanced strength, and it enhanced functional performance. And it's also good for cognitive function. So this is an important supplement you shouldn't be afraid of. And I'll give you some dosing recommendations at the end. So practical recommendations for this. You want to be strength training 2 to 3 times a week. You want to be moving daily. Walking is wonderful. As you can see, it doesn't take much to hold on to muscle. You just got to move your body every day. You want to avoid becoming pre-diabetic or diabetic. And unfortunately, there's a lot of people walking around that are pre-diabetic and don't even know it. Pay attention to your blood sugar in your lab work. You want to keep that insulin sensitivity up. Adequate protein. It's probably going to be twice as much as you're consuming now. When we work with clients, they often say, I was eating less than the recommended daily allowance. And as I mentioned, that is already far too low. It's about 50 grams for a lot of people per day. And when we work with clients, we want to see them eating at least 100 grams. Most clients. So you want to aim for 30 to 50 grams of protein about 4 times a day. And you want to get about 3 grams of leucine per meal. Now that leucine might be naturally occurring, like if you had a steak or a piece of salmon or something like that. But you probably also want to supplement with a leucine protein powder. And you can buy those for about 20 bucks a bag off of Amazon. I'm going to start doing that actually. So it's really important. If I had to order this, I mean, they're all important, actually. They're all important. But I think lifting weights and getting enough protein and daily movement, well, obviously, I can't pick. Can you pick? I can't pick. They're all important.
I think that if you start to recognize that things that you do in your everyday life are getting more difficult, then it's really important to stop and ask yourself, what can I do to make this easier on myself? And maybe that's lifting weights, or maybe that's walking every day, or maybe that's saying, okay, I really need to dial in on my nutrition. They're all really important. But I think that if this is not something you're currently focusing on, picking one area and then mastering that before picking another, because doing everything all at once can be very overwhelming. So take it slow. Obviously we want to be healthy and we want to jump in and do it all at once, but sometimes that's just not realistic. So pick the one thing that stands out to you that you say, you know what, I can do this starting today. This is something I can commit to right now. And once this becomes a part of my identity, then I can move on to picking something else and adding that in. So just make it as easy. As easy as possible.
If you're really sedentary, maybe just walking around the block, that's your start. And picking one meal where you're like, I'm going to make protein king on my plate. And then the rest I'll fill with veggies and something else healthy, some healthy fats. And just that one meal, one walk, and then go up from there. Yeah, that's great advice. Now I have some more vitamin supplement recommendations here. A multivitamin is not going to hurt. It can fill in the nutritional gaps. A lot of people don't eat enough fruit and vegetables, for example. Vitamin D, low vitamin D levels can lead to muscle atrophy and reduced strength. So that's something you might want to consider if you can get your vitamin D levels tested, because you might not need to supplement with a lot of vitamin D. Also daily exposure to sunlight. So maybe you go for a walk at lunch and then you get the sunlight and the activity in. Mm-hmm. Lots of vegetables. If you don't eat at least 4 vegetables a day, ramp it up. Chronic low-level inflammation, as we mentioned, is more common in aging adults and can contribute to sarcopenia. A healthy diet can reduce inflammation. A healthy body weight can greatly reduce inflammation. Vitamin E, you might want to consider it. Healthy fats, as I mentioned, so olive oil, salmon, things like that, avocados, and then creatine supplementation. 5 grams per day is good for 90% of people. If you weigh under 200 pounds, 5 grams a day is going to be good. And ideally, you want to take it with foods that are insulinogenic. So what do we mean by that? Foods that actually spike your insulin. So think about that. Those tend to be starchy carbs, but actually a whey protein drink, like whey protein powder, spikes your insulin. And it's not a bad thing. Unfortunately, people want to make insulin into some kind of monster. Insulin is an important muscle building hormone. So you could have your creatine in, and Tiffany was telling me she actually mixes it in with her whey protein shake. And don't get the flavored kind, get the unflavored, tasteless kind, because the raw stuff tastes absolutely horrible. But you could have that, in the afternoon. It could be your 4th meal, for example. Aim for 30 to 50 grams of protein powder, like macro protein. Might be a scoop and a half, 2 scoops. Add some creatine in there, and that in itself can be a meal, and that will help you bump up your protein as well. Mm-hmm. So I'd love to know if there are any questions about the supplementation.
Nothing in the comments so far.
Okay. All right. So really appreciate your time and attention today. I hope it was valuable for you. We have a couple more talks coming up. March 9th, we're going to talk about osteoarthritis and osteoporosis, so nutrition recommendations to reduce or improve bone health. And then March 16th, we're going to talk about weight loss and neurodegenerative function, so addressing undesired weight loss and cognitive decline in older adults through practical nutrition tips. Really appreciate your time and attention today. If you have any questions, please comment below and you will hear from us. We will be monitoring the chat, and we're happy to answer any and all questions that you have. Thanks for coming.
So with that said, Adele, I'm going to let you finish off. I actually have to run and get my kiddo from preschool. Thank you guys so much for your interaction today. I loved it. I loved having you on here. And I also want to shout out to Alice for joining us during this live. I saw your comments as well. So thank you so much.
Thanks for coming, Alice. Thanks so much. All right. Take care, Tiffany.
Bye.
I just wanted to, a couple reminders, a couple housekeeping items. One is, we have our new U program, which stands for Nutrition, Exercise, and Wellness. And we offer customized strength training programs and nutrition on a one-on-one basis. And it's a really good value. And it's 12 weeks of coaching. You can renew as often as you like. So if you're interested in that, happy to send you the link. Just comment below and we'll send you more details. I have a webinar you can watch if you don't want to talk to anyone yet, and you just want to learn a little bit more about it. But we have just the diet only, and then we have the diet plus strength training. And as you know, I'm a huge advocate for strength training, and for all the reasons that we talked about today. The other thing we have coming up, which is exciting, is on March 2nd, we're kicking off a 40-day challenge. So I wrote a book called 40 Days, A Quest for Self-Improvement. It is available on Amazon. It may still be available on sale for another day for 99 cents. And then it goes to $5 for the Kindle copy. You don't need a Kindle to read it. You can actually download the app to read it on any device. And it's a really pleasant experience with the reading app. And that app is free from Amazon. You would just Google Kindle Reader and you can download it. People have read the book on their phones, for example, or their tablets. So this 40-day challenge is going to be fun. I want you to read the book and then choose a 40-day challenge for yourself and then announce it in the Facebook group on March 2nd. We're going to be doing a kickoff. And if you've never worked with us, you're going to get a taste of what coaching is like with us, because we are going to have a private Zoom meeting with all the people who are doing the challenge. So I'm excited about that because we want to help you be successful at your challenge. So we're going to have some practical tips and considerations in choosing a challenge and to help you with your challenge. So I hope you'll sign up for that. The link is here, and you can sign up until March 2nd, and it's free to enter. You just got to buy the book. All right, well, thank you so much for your time today. I really appreciate it, and we will catch you next week. Actually, no Facebook Live next week. We'll catch you the week after. Okay, take care.